Agenda item 4 is the Mandana Bliss Award. The Bliss Award is a symbol of our deep appreciation for the unwavering commitment and outstanding efforts demonstrated by our staff members for educational excellence in the Stevens Point Area Public School District. It is named in honor of Mandana Hale Bliss, Stevens Point's first school teacher and trailblazer, whose exceptional service and dedication continue to inspire us all. This award lends the opportunity to shine a light on remarkable contributions made to the district by our staff and recognize their exemplary service. So I'd like to pass this over to Corey to present the award.
Thank you, Jen. At this time, I would ask that Anna Lamb, English teacher and instructional leader from Ben Franklin Junior High, to come forward, as well as 9th grade student Nora Langenhan. A few words about Anna, and then we'll present Anna with the award.
Oftentimes, teachers are left to wonder whether or not what they do makes a difference to their students, and I'm here to say that Mrs. Lamb does exactly that. Every time I have walked into her classroom, I get a sense of joy and automatically feel better about my day. Mrs. Lamb does an excellent job at teaching her students while still formatting the material in a way that doesn't make learning feel dull or boring. She is always very kind and makes every student feel heard in her classroom. She never makes anyone feel bad for answering a question incorrectly and always explains the material very well. She is also an incredibly caring teacher. With Mrs. Lamb, it feels like you could talk to her about anything and everything. She genuinely listens to her students' concerns and will always give very considerate and helpful feedback. I could say so many more things about this wonderful teacher, but to keep it short, Mrs. Lamb is a kind, welcoming, and empathetic teacher who, from my experience, changes the lives of her students every day. And so while many teachers are left to wonder how their work makes a difference to their students, Mrs. Lamb, you don't have to. I'm very proud to represent your past and present students with this well-deserved recognition.
So at this time, we're going to take a picture here in the middle. We'll ask Mr. Bergner to come forward, and then we'd like to have you make the way around the table. Each board member would like to congratulate you and your student. Okay, so let's go to the middle.
Couple for me, and then we're going to hold for the other photographers. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Go ahead. You're good? Good. All right.
Well deserved.
Now get to read.
Nicely done.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. For everything you did. Great presentation. You did that nicely.
Thank you.
Good job. Don't ever be afraid to speak public.
Ted with the toast.
Well written.
All right, thank you. It's always, I think, the best part of our board meetings. No offense, Chris and Corey. Sorry, to all the other presenters. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, public comments. We did not have anyone email comments or sign up for comments tonight. Agenda item 6, we have our Student Senate Representative Report with Kylie Haas, and we want to welcome you, and we're happy to have you with us this year.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Right. Good evening, school board members. As the school year has just begun, many fun events at SPASH are starting to take place. September is an exciting month for SPASH students. Many students are embarking on a new school journey, and upperclassmen are excited to continue their education at SPASH. Homecoming was an exciting event in September, with a fun dress-up week consisting of Monday was Adam Sandler Day, Tuesday Neon, Wednesday 80s and Mr. Spash, Thursday Country vs. Country Club, and Friday was Red and Black Day. Friday also included the parade and Panther Bowl for the junior and senior girls. Lastly, there was the homecoming football game in which the Spash Panthers took home another win against Wausau West. Now that October is upon us, sports are on the rise. Spash's fall sports include many exciting sports, and here is a highlight of them all. Boys and girls cross country is doing very well this season. They raced on Saturday, October 10th and did very well. The girls are doing well as well. Girls golf is coming to a close with their top golfer, senior Skylar Millen, shooting a .231. Although the team is losing some varsity girls, they have promising upperclassmen making much progress. The girls Spash swimming team is doing very well and has won all their conference meets so far and are closing in up on conference in the next 2 weeks. And they're hoping to win the title of conference champs once again. Volleyball season is coming to an end with playoffs in 2 weeks. And last week, they brought home another win with their leader, freshman Nora Kruger. Pom and dance season is right in the middle as their first competition is coming up in the middle of November. They are doing well and practicing for that right now, as well as performances as numerous sporting events, as well as sharing their performances with the cheer team. Spash's football has been doing wonderful things this season yet again, bringing home the River Jug and winning our homecoming football game. Their last game was Friday, October 11th. Unfortunately, we did not win, but we put up a fight and went into overtime, showing the dedication and hard work of these boys and coaches. Boys soccer season is coming to an end with their last game on Saturday. Overall, they have been doing well. Spash's football has been doing amazing per usual. And lastly, the girls tennis team completing their season and sending Lily Meeks, Mally Palmer, Lily Harger, Emma Ekstrand, and Elaine Titus off to sectionals in the next couple of weeks. Our clubs include Hmong Club, FCCLA, Mountain Biking, HOSA, and FFA are doing some events this month. Many more are doing so much more to come in the next couple of months. But Hmong Club has a volleyball tournament, and Mountain Biking has often been doing racing well this season. FCCLA is hosting a pickleball tournament on November 10th in HOSA with a color run on October 19th. And to welcome the fall season, FFA is having a pumpkin carving competition. Just as Spash's athletes are training vigorously, so are our music students. Mr. Atzett has a plethora of students who are showcased tomorrow at 7 p.m. at a choir concert at Spash. The orchestra students have a concert this Thursday at Spash as well at 7 p.m. And the jazz band is in the midst of practicing for their concert in the middle of November. All their hard work goes to represent and show off all their wonderful talents, exhibiting the time and effort our students and lovely music teachers have put into these children. Overall, Spash has had a wonderful start to the year, adjusting nicely to being back, and especially our new implementation of the block schedule. Our block schedule was tested out last year in April and now has been implemented into our Wednesday and Thursday schedules. They look like this. On Wednesday, from 7:35 to 8:25, our teachers are in meetings preparing for the day, and our students have a late start, arriving at school at 8:25. Each of our class periods are 85 minutes, allowing for more work to be done and questions to be asked, allowing for extra work time at the end of each class period. But because of that, on Wednesday, we only have classes for our even hours, such as 2, 4, and 6, and Thursday, we have classes on hours 1, 3, 5, and 7. I myself enjoy the block schedule and can confirm that many of the other Spash students do as well. To conclude this, I want to thank you for your attention and time, and I hope that you enjoyed this and will have found this information exciting and interesting. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kylie.
Thanks, you
Nice
go.
job, Kylie.
Okay, we will move on to our next agenda item, 6B, which is our communication report with Sarah O'Donnell.
Hi, thank you. Welcome, Kylie. You did great. It's fantastic. Communications report was included in your packet. Can you go to the beginning, Chris? Maybe? Or we can hang out there. We can hang out there.
Hang on. Sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know why it went to the last slide, not the first slide.
That's what it does sometimes. I feel like I don't know where to stand now that it's a new system, right? All right, starting off our media coverage and public relations for the month, we issued 3 press releases throughout the month of September and had some really nice coverage from those. One of the ones I was most surprised with and pleased with was the coverage from implementing the BEST program here, which was done with a grant. So really excited. Jenny did a phenomenal job with those interviews as well. We received coverage throughout the month from Stevens Point Journal, Point Plover Metro Wire, WSAW, WOW, and WIS Politics. Looking at our social media engagement for the month, it was homecoming, which usually means some pretty high social media engagement for us. So we saw an increase of 60% growth in impressions over the previous period and 10% growth in engagement over the previous period. So social performed very well for the month of September. One of my favorite pieces we did was this alumni roll call during homecoming. We did it on the Friday of homecoming and asked people to just kind of share where they are, what's going on. It took off. We had almost 200 comments on it, which is a lot for a post that we would put onto social media. It was just really cool to see how many folks have left and come back, how many folks have kids that are currently in the system that graduated from SPASH. So if you get a chance and want to read through those, just a lot of really good things in there. And then also we're looking forward to grabbing some of those folks and doing some alumni highlights as well. So just a nice opportunity to see what folks do after they leave us. Looking at website and digital, existing website was up by 6.1%. Trending pages, no surprises there. District landing page, resources for staff, SPASH, that should be boys cross country, my apologies. The SPASH landing page and staff directory. The future website build, we continue to move through those training and content updates. Our first staff training beyond kind of those folks that have higher level responsibilities will begin on October 24th. We'll do 3 trainings this month and then continue with that through November and December. Newsletters performed quite well. We saw 20% engagement on our district source, 13% on our education connection, and 16% on the key communicator. Looking at special projects and campaigns, we continue to work through our Bullying in the Digital Age series. We actually have another one of those coming up this week on the 16th, Wednesday. So if you're available and would like to join us, Stevens Point Police Department will be giving the presentation at this point in the series about just what they see online, ways that they believe you can help keep your children safe, and just kind of that other viewpoint from one that we might have or one that we might have as parents. We continue to work on the attendance campaign. Jeff was able to pick up another donor this last month, and we will release some information asking for folks who are able to contribute to consider just things they might be able to give to encourage students to improve that attendance. You know, we need them to be in school so they can learn. So we've had some really good donations come in so far, and we're looking forward to continuing to expand that. And then homecoming coverage and promotion was just a big part of last month. If you did not get a chance to see either the homecoming recap video or the Mr. Spash highlights video, I encourage you to watch them. They're just really, it's cool to see what our teachers and staff do for our students in a really big way. We had a lot of comments to like, Mr. Spash has changed a little since 2006, or like, I wish it was like this when I was in high school. So it's just, we provide really great experiences for kids and really help build that school culture and community. Looking ahead, as I mentioned before, website build will continue. That will be my big project now until the end of December. Just making sure that we get that lifted off the ground. Website training will be a big part of that as we transition to that new content management system, making sure folks understand how to use that system and are comfortable with that system and are not feeling very anxious about that system. And then content creation as always, so just making sure we're getting, covering a wide variation of topics across the district. That's it for me, unless we have questions.
Sarah, so for that campaign, is it like a drawing or a raffle for
The
secondary?
attendance campaign?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we've done so far, like, we've had companies like Quick Trip donated some cards, and then they also had a bunch of like coupons, so you could get like a free slice of pizza or a free soda, or, you know, I can't remember exactly what they were. But so then they've been using those as incentives. So either students that are having good attendance or students who need some encouragement to have better attendance, right? Perfect isn't necessarily the goal, but being in school more than perhaps they had been is the goal. So we also had Caribou Coffee participate in that originally, and I am completely blanking on who Jeff just said he got as well. But we're excited, and it's just really exciting to see community support students in that
Involvement
way.
in that, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions for Sarah? Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report with Corey.
Sure, thank you. So I want to mention that last week was School Board Recognition Week. I want to just take a minute to thank all of the board members for their continued support of our students, our staff, our district, and me personally. I appreciate each and every one of you very, very much, and it's a big job to be a school board member. It takes a lot of time away from your family, so thank you for your continued support of the district and our students and staff. Next, congratulations to Rose Varga. She is a National Merit Scholar semifinalist, and congratulations to Torin Anderson, who is a College Board commended student. I also want to thank the following business partners that continually support our schools in our district. The WASB recognized Steel King, the Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin, Century Insurance, Fall Line Outfitters, and Metal Crafters. So they just contribute a ton of support for our programming here in the district, and they've done so on a year-to-year basis. So congratulations to those 5 businesses that were recognized by WASB. Additionally, it is National School Lunch Week this week, so I want to thank Lori Epstein and her team for all the work that they do providing breakfast and lunch to our students, not only through the school year, but in the summer months as well. Then I want to mention just a few other community gifts that we've been gifted, and then I'm going to transition right into the next agenda item. So recently we learned that Aspirus donated $5,000 from their community benefit program to the district. The United Way just provided the district with several personal hygiene kits. Cooper Oil once again wrote us a check for $17,734. They have been a huge supporter of our schools and have done so for several years. So thanks to Cooper Oil. The Rotary Club donated $2,000 to the district. And with that, I am going to ask that Jenny McMahon, Steve Goldberg from WEA Member Benefits Foundation, and Shannon Summerling from Delta Dental to come forward. We are ecstatic to report that both Delta Dental and the WEA Member Benefits Foundation have gifted the district each $50,000 over the next 3 years to support our mental health initiatives. So to support students and to support our staff. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jenny, and she's gonna tell you a few of the specifics that we're going to use that money for. And then I'm going to turn it over to Steve and Shannon to say a few words.
Yeah.
Jenny?
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Corey. I'm very honored to have both Shannon and Steve here today. They've been instrumental in working toward our mental health visions, hopes, dreams, and really just supporting our students overall. So we're really excited to be able to offer professional development and resources that our teachers might not otherwise be able to have, or our student service staff. Trainings sometimes sound like such an easy thing, provide professional development, but that comes at a cost, especially when that includes a large amount of staff that we want to be able to reach. So we're certainly excited to look into that for our staff and our students. And then also direct services. We have students who are in need of mental health supports and services. Some of those, again, come at a cost. They certainly aren't something that can be free. So we're looking forward to be able to build more systems and supports for students and be able to eliminate some of that barrier of the cost of getting different treatments and services. So again, thank you so much for having us here at the board to talk about these things. I'll let Shannon and Steve provide some information and words of wisdom as well.
Thank you. The words of wisdom is quite a reach for me, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I'm Steve Goldberg with the WEA Member Benefits Foundation in Madison. We've launched a statewide initiative to help school districts raise additional money to support their student mental health programming throughout the state. And we provide a starter grant, basically to kick it off. We engage other partners, such as in this case, Delta Dental of Wisconsin. And so far, we've been able to help 10 school districts, with Stevens Point being the 10th, raise more than $1 million of additional money from their communities to support student mental health in those districts. And certainly the need for mental health support is unfortunately climbing. And one of the reasons we decided to get involved a few years ago in this initiative is that we learned from the State Office of Children's Mental Health that 49% of Wisconsin public school students who have behavioral or mental health issues were not able to get service last year. So the need is significant. 18% of teenage students in the state of Wisconsin have a suicide plan. So these are troubling statistics, and we decided that we wanted to get involved in helping school districts deal with this issue. The grants that we provide and that we're announcing tonight are unrestricted because we know that the school districts understand what they're doing in this field. And Jenny is no exception here at the Stevens Point School District. We chose the Stevens Point School District as one of our 10 participating districts because the approach that is used in this district for student mental health is strategic, it's multi-tiered, and it gets the job done. So we know that by adding more funding to the program, we'll be having a positive impact. And we'll also be working side by side with the district, we've already started to do that, to help the district with its local funder outreach to augment the amount of money that our two organizations are giving. And Corey already told you the amount, which was supposed to be our punchline. That's okay, that's okay.
I'm just so excited.
Well, I'm just glad you got the figure right.
I could have added a 0 or 2.
Yeah, well, you're going to need more, but we're happy to start. And Shannon would like to explain perspective of Delta Dental, Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. And thank you all. A few notes that I stay on mark here tonight too, but thank you. On behalf of Delta Dental of Wisconsin, we sincerely appreciate the Wisconsin Education Association Foundation's support of youth mental health throughout Wisconsin and the opportunity to join you tonight in sharing our combined support to the Stevens Point Public School District. Dr. Hersbrenner, you and your team have done a remarkable job of communicating the mental health needs of the district while presenting solutions that have the potential to positively impact young learners, their families, as well as educators and administrators who have influence in their lives each day. You give us much to consider when determining how to be of greatest support to the communities that your mental health initiatives seek to serve. Delta Dental is committed to addressing oral health needs across the state and to supporting communities that are home to our current and future employees. Continued investment in our workforce extends beyond our four walls to include community donations of time, talent, and treasure. Many of our employees live in this district and, like me, volunteer our time in our schools. For all these reasons, your funding request was especially important to us. Tonight, I'm thrilled to share Delta Dental of Wisconsin's commitment to match the WEA Foundation's grant with a, we weren't going to say the amount, right?
No, somebody already did. We don't have to say that.
With our $50,000 donation
And
to
that
the
makes a
Stevens,
total of
$100,000,
over how many years?
3 years.
And is it restricted or unrestricted?
Unrestricted. So may our match inspire more partners to join us in supporting your efforts to address mental health across many, many communities. You may know oral health is connected to overall health. Oral health is also connected to mental health. And we're happy to help support people impacted in our area schools. Supporting mental health could possibly lead to lasting smiles. Thank you for the opportunity to share, the opportunity to offer a reminder that we have much to smile about here in the Stevens Point Public School District. Shine on.
Could we shake everybody's hand like they?
Absolutely. First of all, let's get in the middle for a photo and then you.
Whoa, get out of here.
Okay.
Move, gentlemen.
Yes, we're going to get. I think so.
She's going to be in every picture.
Yeah, Meg's in the photo. Does Meg know that she?
Oh my God.
It's right.
I don't think so, because she's not moving.
She'll be in every photo.
We'll see your hutch.
Handshake.
Thank you so much.
Get over here. Thank you. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I want another one.
It's like you guys coordinated your outfits to a beautiful speech. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You got us to smile. Earlier? Well said. Statistics are really hard to hear.
I know.
They really are.
The 18%.
Thank you.
Start October.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both so much. All right, moving on to our next agenda item. This is the consent agenda, agenda item 7. I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the prior school board meeting from September 9th, 2024, and the employment recommendations. Just a note that we will bring the schedule of monthly bills to the October 28th budget meeting.
The wrong document was uploaded into board docs, so we need to hold off on approving those tonight, and we'll bring those back in October 28th.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Will, second by G. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 8, we have 8A, Business Services and Human Resources Committee Report with our Chair, Ted Kowalski.
Thank you, Jen. We had an action-packed business and HR meeting last week. I'd like to share a little bit about an informational report Dr. Owens presented us. It was the third Friday enrollment count. And so it was interesting to hear. He shared with us the enrollment numbers, the membership numbers, and the full-time membership. A quick synopsis of what he reported to us was that the numbers are down a little bit over the past 2 years. And so we're looking at just under 1% for a decrease. This is not unexpected given what we've seen across the state of Wisconsin. In the WASB training and the information that we have there, there's going to be continued decline in enrollment across the state. But we're going to see pockets where enrollment will go up and enrollment will stay steady. Currently here, the enrollment is a little bit on the downward slide, and we're hopeful to see things turn around. But this is something that we're monitoring very closely. Thank you, Professor Owens. Second on the list would be the approval of bus bids and acquisition. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not.
The
New
new
member.
citizen committee member.
Yep, new member. That was fun. We had, at our board meeting, we had really 5 applicants applied to be the volunteer citizen committee member for the business and HR meetings. And we had 4 interviews. Of the 4 interviews, it was really a hard choice. Everyone was exemplary. They were all really well qualified. I'm very pleased to say that I think that given what the needs of the boards are and to meet diversity and what each of us felt we needed in the board, we have selected Marnie Mercer. It would make a recommendation to approve her as the new citizen committee member.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve Marnie Mercer as the new citizen member on the Business Services Human Resources Committee.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Will, second by G. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
The next one is the bus.
Yes.
And so we had a long discussion about this. This is a really interesting one, too. Typically, for the buses that we have in our transportation service, we're looking to put them into a replacement schedule of every 6 years or so. And so this is a normal thing that is coming up for us. This is a replacement for a recommendation to do 11 buses, and plus the trade-ins for the different buses that we have, it would bring us to a net cost of well, $1,122,250 after the trade-in credits. The reason that we're looking to do this so early in the year is because by the time it takes to produce the buses, we need to have them for service for August of 2025. It's interesting, too, for the trade-ins, we do this on approximately a 6-year basis, and the reason is the maintenance and the upkeep and the way the buses work, it keeps us in a nice schedule. We'll be looking to do this at the current interest rate that is offered for us, would be 4.67%, which is pretty good, and actually, there could be some variation in this because the buses aren't even produced yet. And so, if there are any questions, if not, I would look for a recommendation for approve the motion.
Sure, we're looking for a motion to approve the purchase of 11 2025 Type C conventional type 72-passenger diesel-powered buses with exterior luggage compartments from Ascendance Truck Centers of Marshfield, Wisconsin for $1,122,250, the cost of which is to be paid by lease over a 6-year period in annual payments that are expected to be about $210,468 per year, allowing for modifications to the bid or interest amount.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Yes.
How many buses do we have in total?
I think,
Go ahead.
well, Dr. Owens would know, but I think our fleet is over 70.
Did you hear that, Dr. Owens? How many buses do we have in total? 72. Did you have a question, Chi?
Yeah, I was just curious about the financial part of it. We had an interest rate. Do we have to borrow the money to make these payments every year? Is that what it is?
No. Dr. Owens, can you come forward to the podium?
The question,
Mr. Pope is asking if we have to borrow money to make these payments each year.
If we have what?
To borrow the money to make these payments.
No, we do not.
so he's referencing the 4.67% interest rate.
How many, do we buy this many every year?
Oh, excuse me, you mean in reference to the program purchase?
Yeah,
Yes, we purchase this basic amount each year. It goes on a lease purchase. We're not actually borrowing the money per se, but we're lease purchasing it. And that's about the amount we pay. And then at the end of that period of time, we own the buses.
so next year we'll buy 11 more buses?
Correct. We rotate approximately that many
Is that
buses.
kind of a rolling thing? Like you
Yes,
just keep
yes.
rolling that over and over?
Of course, now some of that depends on the mileage, et cetera. Lee can speak to that better than I can, but if we have a year where a number of buses, because of the way the routing just happens to fall based on the students, if there are fewer buses, there might only be 10 or 9 one year because the mileage is still pretty low, we'll run that. But we don't want to run a bus too high in mileage because we run into 2 problems, one dealing potentially with warranty, the other with trade-in value to recoup some of our money to get a lower cost when we go to purchase on the next cycle.
So when we do these payments, how long does it take to pay off the buses we're buying this year?
7 years.
So are we paying for last year's purchase still?
Yes, there's a cycle. There's a,
Do you have any way of knowing how much we pay for buses every year? I mean, to buy
sure, if we put that together, sure.
like 7 times
Sure.
whatever that is. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim?
Now, keep in mind, that's all eligible for state aid. So we get roughly a little over half the money back in form of state aid.
Which, interestingly enough, and I asked Professor Owens too about it because how we do the interest, but because of the state aid, it works in our favor to do it this way.
Yeah.
Jim?
Oh, you said that the interest, that we do that, is it locked in for sure for 6 years? Or if, for instance, if interest rates drop 2 points, do we have the ability to refinance that in some way and reset somehow? Or is it because it's a 6-year lease or
We
7-year
could,
lease,
we could
it's
always
automatic?
have that ability to refinance if it falls enough. Generally, you'd have to have a drop of over 2% to make that
Worth
reasonable,
the-
because,
The cost to redo it.
yes, well, plus the period is not that long. It's only 7 years. It's not like a 30-year mortgage, so the recoup of that is pretty hard to get. But we're looking at about 4, 6, 7. That's fairly low.
Other questions? Okay, so,
You said
yeah.
7 years and the motion says 6 years.
Yes, it's 6 years, and then we own it starting the 7th year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we rotate them about every 7 years. So sometimes, by the time we're done purchasing one, we might wind up rolling that into the next one. It all depends again on the mileage and what takes place with a particular vehicle.
okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Don't go too far in case there are questions. The next thing that we talked about was, we'd look at is the approval of the mobility and passenger van acquisition. And this is an interesting one, too. Dr. Owens worked on this and really put the time together to decide if this was a good time to do it because of the bus purchases, too. The way it works out is we have a mobility van, which has the wheelchair lift, and it's a very expensive van. And so we need to do this, we need to upgrade it. And we also have another van too that is showing its age. What's going on is Dr. Owens did a study for the second van to determine how much it would cost us to do this so that we didn't have to use a 72-passenger bus to move students around. Because sometimes we're doing that for 1 or 2 students. And so the second van is another asset that we can do to make ourselves more efficient in the transportation area. And Lee from Transportation has worked closely with him to decide how we were working this. So he wrote up a proposal for this and determined the payback on the van, and I really liked how you did that. Can you share that with us? On the payback for the van, because
Sure.
we don't have the CDL.
First, I have to give credit to Lee. He was the one that initiated this, and the basic idea was his, and I don't want to take credit for that. And we did work together then to try to fine tune this and figure out how to work that out. So the mobility van, which you just explained, Ted, is very expensive. The requirements of statute and whatnot in order to be able to affect this. It really brings in, we got a couple of quotes. One was $102,000 and some change, and the lowest one was $82,799, which is actually a fairly reasonable, pretty good price for a mobility van. There's a lot of equipment that goes into that. Of course, then we're faced with, well, what do we do? How do we pay for that? How do we offset that cost, et cetera? And Lee came up with the idea that we've had a number of routes reduced over the last few years since COVID and the number of lack of driver availability, et cetera. So we really had to dial in and tighten up our routes to the maximum amount. So we had 3 buses that we had in reserve, and he's suggested we take 2 of those, keeping 1 back, but we take 2 of those and trade those in to help offset the cost of the mobility van. Now, we also have from our last year's sale, which just finished up with the bus purchases in August, they just arrived. That's the reason we purchase now, because it takes that long to build the buses and get them here in time for school next year. So the August one, we had a credit due from that transaction of $16,500. So combined with the sale of the 2 buses, 2 72-passenger buses that we're holding in reserve right now, along with the credit, that would give us $91,500, which would be a little bit more than what we needed to pay for the mobility van. In addition to that, we have 18 students that we've already identified that require special transportation. And we're not talking about the regular routes. Sometimes the child is picked up in the morning on the regular route, but has to return home in the middle of the day on a non-regular route. And then the inverse, sometimes they're picked up in the middle of the day and they ride home at the end. And in some cases, neither, because they may be under a McKinney-Vento, they may be a homeless, something like that. So we have to make transportation runs, and these have to be done with the buses that we have, 72 passenger buses. Sometimes we're transporting 1 or 2 kids. It's not very economical. So we looked at how could we deal with that. We have one van right now that we use that's a regular 7-passenger van. Does not require a bus driver's license to drive that. And we are transporting students in that, and that's helpful. So we looked at, well, what if we got a second one? And we ran out the numbers on that. A 7-passenger van is, we did some quotes on that, and the lowest one was $39,900, but that was used with just under 40,000 miles, 38,000 plus miles on it. And a brand new one with the warranties and all of that other was $39,000. That's only about a $7,000 difference, so it didn't make sense to look at the used one. So we looked at the $39,000. So how do we pay for that? Well, we've got some differential left over from the sale of the 2 buses and the credit. We could apply that towards it, and that still left us with $30,000, but we have money in the budget, that the transportation budget, that would cover that, so that would balance it out so we could pay for it all out of budgeted monies. The other thing we looked at is, okay, if we're going to be running a 7-passenger bus, what is the payoff between using a non-CDL driver versus a CDL? Because the labor rate is much lower for a non-CDL driver. And also the mileage is quite different. You get about 8 miles to the gallon on a 72-passenger bus. Of course, on a van, you get roughly 20, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending if you get the wind behind you. But that cost differential, it amounts to about $3,500 a year, to be very conservative in the calculation. So that would be a payback of that $30,000 in about 8.7 years if we only had 1 child on that bus. Now, if we can work it out so that we could possibly get 2 kids on that van, now we're down to about 4 years. If we can get a third, or if you see where I'm going with that, we can start to make that payback what's more. But the biggest thing is that sometimes it's just hard to find a CDL driver. And if we're having to take care of these kids, which we do have to, and of course we want to, it makes more sense to do that with a 7-passenger van than with a 72-passenger bus rolling down the road. So that was our recommendation for moving forward on this, to make it an affordable approach. And of course, that mobility van, we really need to deal with that. And the one that we were replacing, we will keep that in reserve as a fallback if we need that for some other reason, but that wouldn't be our primary one after this. Does that help out?
That's wonderful. I really appreciate you and Lee thinking outside the box and coming up with some creative ideas on how to not only finance this, but make us more efficient in the way we do these things.
And it's going to be very helpful for even athletic teams that are smaller, right? Because there's been instances where we've used a bus to transport a team of 5 somewhere, so. Okay.
I just have one question. Is there an insurance difference between a 72 and a 7?
Well, sure. I mean, I can't tell you what it is, but they're both covered under our insurance.
I'm just thinking, is it a substantive amount different between the 2 of them?
Would think so.
One would think.
It would be an interesting question to know, but.
But a school bus is very safe. Have you ever wondered about the bump rails on a I got to tell this one, Lee. The bump rails on a bus? You know what those are? You know the 3 black lines on a bus?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what those are for?
No.
For firefighters.
What's the bottom line for it, Ted?
Okay. I think that's the frame.
That's the floor.
The floor. Okay.
That's the floor.
All right.
And then the middle line? That's the seat where the children are sitting. And then the top line is roughly where their head is on the. That's so that emergency vehicles, in case there's a problem, things are sealed up or whatever, they know how to access the bus, and when they do, where it's at. So there's a reason for those lines. Yeah.
Never knew. Thank you so much.
We're all a little smarter.
And with that,
Yeah, I'm going to sit down and shut up.
thank you. Thank you so much. Very informative. So with that, we are looking for a motion to approve the purchase of a mobility van and a 7-passenger van for use in transporting children.
Like to make the motion?
Motion made by Ted, second by Will. Questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And with that, we will move to agenda item 10. We have educational services, and we have our Educational Services Committee report with G. Pope.
Okay, we had two excellent presentations, very detailed. The first one on students with disabilities and inclusion was given by Jen McMahon. And if I can go ahead and summarize that. It was mainly about, well, we had data from the year 22, 23, okay? And it was rather discouraging data. It showed that Stevens Point District, and I'm trying to think how you said it well, Chris, we were at 8% inclusivity.
The 8th percentile, right? Which means in terms of inclusive practices being implemented for students in grades kindergarten through 12, our district scored in the 8th percentile.
Of all the schools that were
All the
involved
districts
in
in the state.
Oh, that was for the whole state,
Correct.
which was kind of discouraging. And this data is gleaned right from the IEPs. But that's 22, 23. And we don't have the data for last year till next month or something is going to come, right?
November.
So we're going to look at that. And Jen outlined the plan that she's been working, I assume since we had that data, and what's going to happen in the future to try to get that number up where we're not such an outlier. So, and that was her presentation, and we're waiting for the next set of numbers to see how much we've improved, right? And you think in November sometime?
It's usually about mid-November.
Okay, so probably maybe the December school board meeting?
Sure, Ed Services, yeah, we
Okay.
could take a look at that.
Okay. Then the other presentation was a safety and security update by Jeff Milsma. And he went through all the things that are happening in the district, meetings, trainings, and so forth, which is constantly going on, and training and retraining to keep our schools safe. And it was nice to see that we're very involved. And, you know, it's difficult to get into our schools, and it should be difficult. So everybody's working hard on that. So that was the other presentation.
Thanks, G. Okay, agenda item 12, we have technology services. We have our cybersecurity briefing with Brian Casey, our Director of Technology.
Good evening. I'm here to do a real brief report for you. Previously, in another school board meeting, I gave kind of a briefing that highlighted an overview of our cybersecurity program, the framework that we use, the goals. That's sort of a 10,000-foot view, and that set the foundation. What we're trying to do here now is show you what happens on a monthly basis, and those are the data points, the metrics that we really look at, that we use to kind of measure our own growth. And the goal is to keep you informed about what it is we are doing, because at that meeting, prior to that meeting, school board members were asking, well, what are we doing in the district? How are we keeping our systems, our data, our personal information safe? How are we protecting students? And why? Why do we do these things? So that's the goal, is to give you a real brief snapshot every month using some of these metrics, and we'll see where it goes. And also, I decided I would pick out one little aspect to highlight too, to go in a little bit more depth, but I'll try and be brief. You should see this monthly cybersecurity update, and that's for September. You're looking at data from 1 month. We decided to do September and exclude July and August because those are summer months. That doesn't really give you a true picture for what's going on in the district because there's no students. There is summer school, but it's different. First of all, we have outages and service disruptions. Those are things that take away the availability of our resources. That's very important when those things happen. We had 2 Skyward service disruptions, and when that happens, that is a very big deal. We can't do most things in the school district without Skyward. Fortunately, those were resolved quickly. And then we had one issue that came about due to software. That's not uncommon. When you have software updates, things stop working, and we couldn't print from Chromebooks. Now, it takes away availability for all staff and students to be able to print. Not a good thing. But luckily, those outages were short-lived. Second, we have email security. Email is one of the most important things that we have here. It's the #1 way to communicate, as it is for most businesses. And it is probably the most attacked and the most vulnerable. So in our district, on a monthly basis, for the month of September, we had over 250,000 emails that came in. And of that, we accepted 77%, which were fine, and then 23% were rejected for various reasons. We sent out about 43,000 emails. We scanned emails. There were about 16,000 links in emails, all of which were scanned before they came in. And 60 were deemed unsafe and were blocked before anyone could even click on them or do anything with those. We found 9 instances of inbound malware that was sent to the district. Those were blocked. We scanned over 8,000 attachments. And this is unusual. There were no unsafe attachments, which is very rare. But I think the reason for that is we have a lot of policies that just block file types from the get-go. Zip files, other unusual file types are just blocked. And if they are legitimate, the staff usually say, hey, I need my files, and we release them. We had 364 attempts at impersonation, which used to happen quite a bit that they would actually get through. We stopped most of those now. And it happens a lot also with the school board. It does. And there were many this month. We blocked 57 attempts at impersonation. Then we move into what we actually did as a team. These are events that we have to investigate, that we have to respond to. There were about 60 instances of credential identity attacks where someone is trying to steal a password, misuse a password, gain access to an account. We had 9 times that we had to go in and take out malware off of machines. We had staff report 13 different security events, and we had 7 reports come to us from outside from a third-party service we use to monitor our network traffic. So they're looking at a different data point, and if they see something unusual, they let us know, and then we have to do some investigation. The next up is network and internet, and this really is our firewall. And this is not a monthly view, and there's a good reason for that. The monthly data is too immense to look at. A year is almost incomprehensible, and a month is a lot. This is 1 week's worth of data that our firewall is doing. We had over 1.5 million attempts to access URLs outside of the district going out to the internet. Of those, 2,500 were malicious. People were trying to click on links that were taking them to bad places. And there were 587 malicious IP addresses. The reports that we get when you look at this from the firewall, it's probably 10 pages worth of, you can see them listed, of outside unknown entities that are trying to come in and attack us in various ways. Without that firewall, I don't even want to contemplate what our network would look like. So I think I'll keep that on a monthly basis, just pick out a week and highlight it, not try and cherry pick that, but it's more comprehensible. So what were the top threats that we saw? Phishing. I know everyone keeps talking about phishing, but it's still going to be probably the #1 threat for us, given the amount of email that we use and the ease of crafting a phishing email. And if you look at 250,000 emails that were sent in, cyber crooks only have to get lucky 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 times, and those are still pretty good odds against us. If you think about, 100 times that maybe a phishing email got through. Malware, a lot of staff are frequenting the internet, and it's a wonderful place, but it also has lots of peril, and they find plenty of malware to download on their machines. And malware leads to other things. It's usually designed Not, I think people think of viruses, they think they're just sort of strange things that just behave in weird ways. They are designed to steal your credentials, steal identity information, financial data. We've seen a lot of that. They're called Trojans. They come in, they look like a free PDF viewer, and really what it's doing is stealing everything it can find about you. Identity attacks, you saw that before in that other metric where that's just a constant thing. People are always trying to exploit credentials. If they find your password from another site, they're going to try and use it. They'll try and guess passwords through brute force. That's the name of the game, because why try and bash your way in through the firewall when you can get in the easy way with credentials? Some of the key takeaways for you as a board, we're going to keep focusing on email security. That's the #1 thing right now. We are doing a good job with malware. We're preventing most of it, detecting it, removing it. That's a good thing. The credential attacks that I was talking about highlight the importance of multi-factor. We did that a number of years ago, and I can't tell you how important that was. I don't even want to think about what it would look like today if we wouldn't have done that a few years ago. And we're doing it for our students too, which is rare for school districts. Some school districts just want to pretend that student accounts don't exist and they don't have identity attacks. Students are our #1 attack group when it comes to identity. And also the need for the continued security awareness training, that our staff need to be reminded of these things and learn about current threats. We have to keep doing that. So my spotlight this month is on security awareness training. Couple reasons. We launched this last year, and we have some good data on what it looked like after a year. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so what better time to talk about it than now? We put out a newsletter article on scareware, and that's something I think not a lot of people really know about yet, and it is pretty scary. I'm not trying to make a pun there, but it's true. I listened to a response from the cyber response team of Wisconsin that we belong to, responding to another school district where an employee fell victim to scareware. And this employee was so traumatized that they couldn't go back to work for 2 weeks. Because not only is it something where it steals your information, they threaten you with all kinds of nasty things. It's like a personal blackmail type thing that can escalate really quickly and actually bring you into fairly close proximity to criminals where they're calling you, texting you. So it is really bad stuff, and we want to educate our staff about it. The highlight of our security awareness training is the videos that we send out through Mimecast. We send out about 6 a year, and it was pretty successful last year. And by success, I define it as the participation rate was very high, over 80%. People found it manageable. They don't always like it, but it was manageable and informative. And then the survey data that goes along with these was very positive, and I put that in the report. That staff said that they understand how security threats can impact the district. The vast majority of staff reacted very positively to that statement, that they agreed. Understand how these security threats would affect their family, also very positive. They understand that. The majority of the staff said that they know what steps they can take to prevent security breaches. That was also very good. And they know what steps we are taking to help prevent security breaches, which is really important because sometimes, people don't understand. They, if it's a lot of security, they think we're just being paranoid or we're being too harsh or too strict. And there's good reason for it. And the fact that a lot of our staff understand that is great. And lastly, they said that they think the organization is doing everything it can to help prevent security breaches. That was very positive. The vast majority of staff agreed with that. So overall, I think we're doing good with our security awareness training. We'll see where we're at the end of this year, and maybe we'll shift and try something new or keep doing this. So that's the monthly look at this, and I'll try and come back next month with some of the same type of data and highlight some different things.
Thank you, Brian.
Questions? right, thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 13, under general 13A, we have our budget evaluation process with Chris.
So as promised last month, I want to start in with an update on the program and budget evaluation work that's been going on for about the last year and a half by giving some additional detail on our partnership with Hanover, which is an educational research company that we've partnered with, to kind of add the next layer to the budget evaluation and program evaluation process. I really think of this work as sort of falling into three separate categories. We began by first just identifying the programs and what were we going to define as a program. You'll see just a little bit later in the presentation that we identified 48 programs in the district. I'm proud to say that we have evaluated 46 of those 48, so we are nearing the finish line. We had set sort of a informal goal of completing the initial evaluation of all 48 of those programs by December of 2024, so we are on track to meet that goal in the process. After we identified the programs, the goal next was really to look at what was in each of those programs. In other words, what number of courses, what number of staff were required to really maintain those programs, and then to look at the outcomes. In other words, what are the results that we're getting from those programs? So we get that by way of data analysis by looking at universal screening data for reading and math. We also look at our summative assessment data that we have through pre-ACT, ACT, and the forward exam. Once we've done those two pieces of the work, we then start to look at areas where we can gather efficiencies. And that really is the stage that we're at now. And that is where our partnership with Hanover has really come in very handy, and it's proven to be very valuable. So our first project that Hanover is currently working on now, kind of simultaneously as we complete our review here internally, we are looking to evaluate secondary programs in grades 7 through 12, primarily based on our initial review. That was the area that we thought that there was most potential to gather or identify efficiencies. The district is assessing which of our course subjects should be required for graduation and how course structures correlate with student outcomes. In other words, we have an informal course sequence that most students typically follow in the area of ELA, in the area of math, in the area of social studies, in the area of science. We all know that our assessment data is not as good as we'd like for it to be. And I am proud to say that based on the preliminary release of our accountability report card, we have seen some significant progress. That's very encouraging. And I'm looking forward to being able to report that out to the board at our retreat on the 19th. But this project will allow for us to be able to gather some additional information from districts that are similar to us and evaluate whether or not our graduation requirements are in alignment with what other districts that have a similar demographic makeup to ours would require. So the objective of this first project that I've scoped with them is to compare academic offerings and graduation requirements with peer districts. So our partners at Hanover are contacting and working with Wausau, DC Everest, Marshfield, and other districts in the state of Wisconsin that are similar, as well as states that are nearby. And I identified Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. I mentioned in a previous presentation that sometimes when we look at districts that are very close to us, in other words, our Valley Five, we refer to that peer group often. Sometimes we all end up doing the same things because we replicate what someone else is doing because they're near us. And we get very similar results. So are there districts in other states, or maybe not in our local region, that are getting very different results from their programs based on graduation requirements or the course sequencing that they've developed for their students to follow? So their findings will help us, and it will help us assess our current program and inform future research studies and surveys. So this first one is what we're looking to complete first. Second project that Hanover is working on currently for us, and this was a massive amount of data that I was very happy to share with them about 2 weeks ago. So they're working through filtering and making sense of all that information. They are helping us to analyze the student progression through course sequences, focusing on advanced courses. Example would be like our AP courses, and how demographics influence enrollment and movement through these courses. So our initial review internally helped us identify that we have some demographic groups that participate in AP courses more frequently. And so we have some historical data to indicate that that's a pattern, and we'd like to better understand why. Hanover will use 6 years of student data that was sent out to create an interactive dashboard. This will visualize course sequences and demographic patterns, helping identify enrollment trends and barriers. And separate analysis will be completed for math and ELA. That's what they're currently working on. And we certainly could move on to social studies and science next. This then connects to budget evaluation and how the program review informs where we gather efficiencies and how we identify additional cost savings. This is the positions that we've reviewed up to this point. We've reviewed 337 total positions. 317 of those have been categorized as fill as is. We have 9 positions that are still considered frozen, and we were able to eliminate 11 positions. So those savings are realized in the 24-25 fiscal year, because that was approximately $1 million in terms of reduced positions that we were able to identify. So as I mentioned earlier, there's the 48 programs that are currently being reviewed or have been completed. We'll continue that work, and we're still looking, once we have those 2 initial projects back from Hanover, to be able to identify a goal for 24-25 in terms of what we think we can identify as savings. So can we exceed the 1 million that we were able to find last year? Or do we think that we can only find something very similar to the $1 million we found last year? So our next steps there are, again, waiting for the results back from the study review from Hanover, and then continuing to look at possible solutions and monitoring the current budget performance and responding to changes in need over time. So that is our update for this month. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
G?
Couple questions.
Sure.
When do you expect this information to come back? This huge amount of data.
It is a
So,
huge amount of data.
When do you think, are we going to see it in time to do some things next year?
Without question. So all of these projects, and there are 3 additional projects that I'm working on scoping out now with our research lead at Hanover. But some of it is contingent on the results that we get from the first 2. So we're at a little bit of a standstill in terms of planning, but the first project is slated to be completed by early November. So that would be the comparative analysis between like districts. And then the course sequencing will take a little bit longer, and the projected completion date for that is mid-December.
On one of the first slides, it said you focus on advanced courses. Why?
Well, we didn't focus only on advanced courses, but this review, as part of being connected to the budget, really has forced us to have some challenging conversations. We think about a program, right, like English language arts or like math. What are the goals of those programs, right? Like, what's the goal? I mean, the goal of that program is to produce an increasing number of students that are either proficient or advanced in that particular content area, right? That's one goal. I mean, obviously, we want to honor that kids have different interests and different ability levels, and we want to honor choice. But we want to see increased levels of performance. And when we look at outcome or return on investment, we should see that slowly increasing or at least maintaining. So when we look at AP classes, that's one measure or one metric that we can monitor whether or not we're preparing students with the skills that they need to be successful in a course like an advanced placement course. So it's one metric that we monitor.
Can you go back to that slide?
Yep, Corey can.
And while you're doing that, Chris, how long have we contracted Hanover? So how long is our engagement?
So it is 1 academic year.
Okay.
So we've started in July, and it will run through June 30th.
What was the cost?
It was $49,000.
That's a
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just interested because in that first paragraph, I know what you said, I heard what you said and everything.
Yep.
But it's to me, it's like focusing on advanced courses. Aren't they focusing on the courses most kids take?
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know what the division is or anything, but I would think most courses, kids are taking our regular courses. Why aren't we focusing on that?
I think that one of the things, G, that we identified as part of our review is we'd like to see, when we think about a goal of a program or an outcome of a program, we'd like to see larger percentages of kids participating in AP. So I think they listed it there in their objective just as an example of one of the pieces of information that we hope to gather.
How long is our association with Hanover going to be?
1 year.
1 year, and then we have the data, we do what we want with the data.
And we'll have the live dashboard, so we'll be able to continue to populate that data, and we can continue to go back and reference it.
And then the 11 positions that have been eliminated, what are, do you have a list of what positions they are?
So the 11 that were eliminated, we had a reading teacher position that was eliminated. We had a 0.6 math teacher and a 0.4 biz ed teacher. So combined, that equals 1.0 FTE. It's really 11 total positions, but it results in 10 total FTE. We had a interpreter, a sign language interpreter. We did reduce a first grade section and a kindergarten section at Roosevelt, as well as a third grade section based on reduced enrollment. Kindergarten, first grade were at Roosevelt, third grade was at Bannock. There was a testing center position, EA position that was eliminated, a regular ed EA position at McDill, a regular ed EA position at Washington, and then a second regular ed EA position at Washington.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris?
I have a question. Can you
Go
hear
ahead,
me?
Meg. Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
I feel like I can only see Chris, so I can't see the board. So I didn't
We
know if
can't
I
see
should
you.
Raise my hand or what? So in terms of evaluation of those programs, you know, we have these two are like huge, but I know that you know, kind of as we move down that list, there are some that are smaller. There's some maybe more focused. Are any of those programs that rather than working through Hanover, we will be able to continue to take a look at internally, so that we're making some progress on maybe some of those other areas as well at the same time that Hanover is working on the really, really larger areas.
Absolutely.
That's my
Yes, there is the ability for us to do some of that more internal analysis. And some of the programs, right, that won't rise to the level of perhaps scoping out a whole project with Hanover. But through the initial data analysis, we've identified the ability to be able to say, you know, we see declining enrollment in this particular program. So that would be an area that we can go back, Meg, and look at on our own and talk about where some efficiencies could potentially be gathered. Good question. Dennis, go ahead.
You mentioned that we reduced some positions, I believe it was at Roosevelt, because of enrollment, and that's enrollment generally, that's by policy. So do we actually add positions elsewhere in the same year, or because of increased enrollment?
I mean, we could have in this most recent year, we did not add sections at any building. We added, so it was just kind of a shifting of FTE, right? So McKinley, for instance, went up one section because there was increased enrollment at, I believe it was third grade. And we had to add a section. So there's just some shifting in FTE that does happen from time to time in buildings through the staffing process that we run in the spring.
But cuts like that aren't necessarily long-term cuts because they're really going to be dependent upon enrollment. So in terms of looking at our budget and trying to find those areas that are permanent and real cuts, even though that helps us in a given year, it could hurt us a year or 2 years from now.
Right, so that $1 million, it's important to note, right? Like that's we realized that in 24-25, but right, we could get a massive influx of students at a particular grade level, and then we're adding sections, and then we've chipped away at that $1 million in cost savings. So absolutely, yep, like that $1 million is really just this year as a guarantee. Barb.
Were the reduction in EAs because of resignations or retirements, or were they let go?
Nope, all of those were realized just through a resignation or a retirement, right? And What has happened in many of those instances that I referenced, particularly at the elementary level, is building principals working to add potentially some additional time, maybe 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, because some of those positions were not necessarily 7-hour EA positions. They were like a 2-hour and 45-minute position. They were a 3-hour position, right? So we count them as a reduction in FTE. We count them as a cost savings, but they weren't necessarily all 7-hour employees. Yeah, so principals have been really taking this whole idea of finding efficiencies to heart, and they've been very creative about how to cover those responsibilities internally by potentially just adding a few minutes here or there to another person's schedule.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I believe in response to Barb, I recall Corey mentioned, or maybe Chris at a previous meeting, that some of the EA positions were sometimes student-specific.
Correct.
And so if that student's gone or moved on or whatever, that there's no need for that EA position. I thought that was
Correct.
the answer to that question
Well,
in the past.
the hand sign language would be an example of that.
Correct. Yep, that student graduated and there was no longer a need for that position. Yeah, it's a great example.
Any other questions for Chris? Yes.
How else do you choose the parameters of who you're comparing our data to? You just said, you said Michigan, Illinois,
Minnesota.
Any reason why you don't pick Iowa?
No, there wasn't any real reason that I didn't pick Iowa. I just thought that those were near enough, but still far enough to give us a good comparative analysis. So still within the Midwest, and it also gathers us the opportunity, I think, to identify districts that are most similar in terms of size and demographic makeup. So when we think of demographic makeup, we look for percentages of students with disabilities, students who are considered socioeconomically disadvantaged, race and ethnicity. So we try to find matches, and they're easier to find if we look at districts that are, at least within a radius.
Okay, good questions. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Chris. All right, we'll move on to agenda 13, item 13B. We have the proposal for a school board self-evaluation aligned with board goals, and this is Sarah O'Donnell.
Hi. So after your board retreat this summer, Corey approached me and shared that you were perhaps looking to have a different board self-evaluation tool. Historically, you have used kind of a annual survey that has been done through School Perceptions, not board specific for sure, but not necessarily tied to your specific goals that you wanted. So I wanted to come back and provide to Corey and to the board an option that really targeted what your goals were for the year, which you set back at that board retreat, and give you an option of surveying once, kind of as we've gotten started in the year as a baseline, and then once again as we get further along through the year. So you can kind of compare some of that growth should you want to. Included in your packet is a copy of those questions. Those were also provided through the board update. I did not receive any feedback on them, but we could certainly talk about that tonight as well. Again, I really wanted to tie these back to, one, giving you more regular updates and reviews, and two, really focusing on those goals so that you are able to know if your behaviors and what you're focusing on here at the board table are really helping you to achieve those goals. And you can see those questions are broken out. So I have questions under that: increasing student achievement in ELA and math, enhancing relationships among board members, enhancing the board and superintendent relations, strengthening governance and leading as a united team, supporting a safe learning environment. And then I'm a big fan of an open-ended question, right? Just kind of tell me what's on your mind. This would be conducted in-house, so we would run this through the communications, through my office. I'd create the survey, I'd manage the survey, provide that feedback back to school board, to Corey and Chris, and then provide you those results so you have that information.
So if you all recall at the board retreat, we talked about wanting actionable insights. The benefit of using a survey like this would align us closely to our board goals, and then this would be a cost-neutral alternative. Questions, comments?
cost neutral?
Cost savings, right?
Well, neutral, well, cost savings.
Cost savings, yeah. You would no longer be purchasing the school.
Because I was just Sarah still creating it, but you're right, it's cost savings.
How much did it cost us for the WASB survey?
Where you looked it up,
Yeah, it wasn't as expensive as one might think. It was a couple $100s, I think, but then the year that we had the individual come here and share the data, it cost a little bit more because we had to pay for her mileage, her hotel stay, and then a fee for her service. So that year, it was a little bit more than what we normally had paid.
When will we do this?
after approval, if you should want to move forward with questions as they are, I'd create the survey and hope to have it to you out by, I mean, we could do it for mid-November, results in December, and then survey again. I can't remember what we said in here.
March, I think.
March. So that the board would have an opportunity to review before any potential turnover in board members.
And we would discuss it at a board meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And then with that open-ended question, so you would share with us themes from all of that?
Yeah, that would
data
be my
feedback?
goal, would be to, one thing to keep in mind with surveys, once we create them, they are a record. So they would be subject to open records law, but your previous survey was as well. Just something to keep in mind when we create surveys.
Other questions or comments? Oh.
I thank you. I mean, thank you that you put on this. I think it reflects the conversation that we had as a board, and I think it's well worth us trying this. It really allows us to focus in on the work and the goals that we have chosen this year to really focus, and it allows us to evaluate and ensure that we have done that. And I think that it will bring out, some real good information for us, both in a reflection back as well as a reflection moving forward. So, and if it's something at the end of this year, we decide, maybe let's go back to that much more conventional, we have that opportunity. But I appreciate the time and effort I know you've put into this, and I do think it reflects what we kind of asked administration to take a look at and bring back to us.
Thanks, Meg.
Thanks, Meg. And there's nothing to prevent this not being, we can make it an iterative process, right? So to your point, Meg, if we're not getting the data or the feedback that we are hoping to get, we can iterate.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not tying yourself to any evaluation tool for a period of time, right? We're going to try it and see if it works for you. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, we'll tweak it until we get what you want.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? If not, we are looking for a motion to adopt the new school board self-evaluation process as presented starting in the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by G, second by Ted. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, moving on to agenda item 13C, future meetings, dates, and times. So just a reminder, everyone, we have our budget hearing on October 28th at 5:30. We have a special board meeting at 6 p.m. We have our regular board meeting in November on November 11th, and then we have our board retreat on November 19th. So 2 times in October, and we'll see each other 2 times in November. Our Ed Services Committee meetings are on the first Monday of the month at 5:30, Business Services and HR Committee first Monday of the month at 6:30. Agenda item 14A, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Alex, second by G. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.